Stellantis shares falling after the CEO, Carlos Tavares, resigned abruptly and filled a bow.
Wow, it looks like that Jeep, Dodge and Chrysler have pulled the trigger to destroy the automotive industry. Not long ago, seeing a new Jeep Gladiator roaring off the lot or a Dodge Challenger thundering down a suburban street was a symbol of American muscle, pride, and tradition. Chrysler was once synonymous with elegance and innovation. For generations, these brands weren't just car names. They were family legacies, road trip companions, and neighborhood status symbols. But fast forward to 2025, and these iconic brands, now part of global powerhouse Stellantis, are facing some of the toughest challenges in their history. Layoffs, production halts, suspended forecasts, and headlines screaming doom. Is this the end? Not quite. In fact, the real story is much more complex and more important. Feeling the shockwaves. What's really happening at Stellantis? It's easy to panic when you hear words like layoffs and plant closures. But here's the real picture. Stellantis, which oversees 14 brands including Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Fiat, Ram, Peugeot, and Opel, is not collapsing. Instead, it's making hard, strategic choices in the face of a perfect storm of problems. Let's break it down. Sales are dropping, and fast. The first domino to fall. Sales. Global vehicle shipments for Q1 2025 dropped 9% compared to the same time last year. But it's even worse in North America, where Stellantis took a 20% nosedive. This isn't a seasonal dip. It's a sign of something bigger. Consumers are buying fewer cars. Some are priced out. Others are waiting for electric options. And some are just uncertain, given rising interest rates and economic anxiety. As a result, net revenues dropped 14%, hitting 35.8 billion euros, much lower than expected. This is about more than just fewer cars on the road. It's about a shift in consumer behavior, rising manufacturing costs, and an industry struggling to adapt in real time. US tariffs just crush the bottom line. Here's where the pain really sharpens. The 25% tariff imposed on imported vehicles in the US Stellantis, which imports more than 40% of the vehicles it sells in America, was hit like a freight train. Suddenly, a big chunk of their lineup became significantly more expensive, either for the company or for the consumer.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to reach 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The fallout, temporary shutdowns at critical plants in Canada and Mexico, where key models like the Chrysler Pacifica, Dodge Journey, and Jeep Compass are assembled. Entire operations paused, shifts cancelled. And then came the layoffs. Layoffs that hit home. Thousands of workers, real people with families, mortgages, and dreams, are now out of a job. Toledo South Assembly Plant, Ohio. Over 1,100 union-backed workers let go. Warren Truck Assembly Plant, Michigan. Up to 2,400 positions cut. Windsor, Ontario, and Toluca, Mexico. Massive closures resulted in nearly 7,000 jobs lost. These aren't just numbers. They're parents, veterans, young professionals, all trying to survive in a changing industry. For communities that depend on these plants, the emotional and financial toll is enormous. The crisis is bigger than Stellantis. This isn't just about Jeep or Dodge. The entire European auto sector is in trouble too. Europe, home to beloved brands like Peugeot and Citroën, also under Stellantis, is dealing with falling demand for new cars, massive job losses, a painful shift toward EVs and software-based vehicles. Layer on global supply chain chaos and geopolitical tensions, and you've got a recipe for transformation and turmoil. With all this pressure, Stellantis did something few giant companies are brave enough to do. They suspended their full-year financial guidance. In plain English, we don't know how this year will end, and we're not going to pretend we do. Instead, Stellantis is focused on adjusting sourcing, shifting production, and rolling out new models that can recapture market share, especially in Europe, where they're seeing some early signs of a turnaround. Despite the chaos, Stellantis isn't sitting still. They're pushing forward with refreshed models and strategic launches. Fiat Grande Panda, Opel/Vauxhall Frontera, Citroën C3 Aircross, refreshed Ram HD models, and they're not just shiny new toys. These are targeted responses to changing consumer demands, more efficiency, better design, and affordability. In Europe, the strategy is already paying off. Stellantis grew its market share to 17.3% in Q1 2025, up 1.9 percentage points from the previous quarter. That's a big jump in a competitive arena. Why the media got it wrong? No, Stellantis isn't destroying the industry. Some headlines want you to believe Stellantis is a villain, destroying the auto industry one layoff at a time. But that narrative is misleading and unfair. Here's the truth. They're responding to real threats, like tariffs, global inflation, and supply chain breakdowns. They're investing in transformation, electrification, software, automation, and more. They're trying to stay alive in a game that's changing faster than ever before.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to reach 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
If anything, Stellantis is showing what survival looks like in an era when entire industries are being disrupted, digitized, and decarbonized. Even the experts are watching closely. Industry analysts at McKinsey, Reuters, and Euractiv agree. What Stellantis is doing isn't reckless. It's calculated adaptation, from crisis management to strategic resilience. Stellantis is among the few companies proactively evolving to stay ahead of uncertainty. McKinsey Automotive report. They're suspending forecasts, not because they're lost, but because they're agile. Reuters. The European auto crisis isn't about failure, it's about evolution. Stellantis is pivoting when others are still paralyzed. Euractiv. Is Stellantis in trouble? Yes. Are they doomed? Not even close. The coming months will be critical. Tariffs could change. EV markets could shift. Consumer confidence might bounce back. And Stellantis, with its sprawling brand portfolio, could emerge leaner, sharper, and more competitive than ever. The emotional tone inside Stellantis has shifted from confidence to crisis. Employees are anxious, dealerships are frustrated, investors are losing faith. This isn't a slow downturn. It's a sudden storm, and the numbers prove it. Problem number 1. Financial guidance gone. One of the first dominoes to fall was Stellantis' 2025 financial outlook. The company has suspended its full-year forecast, stating that the uncertainty from tariffs has made it impossible to predict performance accurately. Think about that. A global automaker can't even estimate how much money it will make. Why? Because it doesn't know how many vehicles it can sell, where to produce them, or what they'll cost after the tariff hit. As CEO Carlos Tavares bluntly put it, "We are navigating through a fog of political unpredictability. That fog just grounded one of the auto world's biggest ships." Problem number 2. Revenue drops hard. 35.8 billion euros, still not enough. In the first quarter of 2025, Stellantis posted 35.8 billion euros in revenue. Sounds big, right? Except it was 14% lower than the same time last year. And when you're running a company that spans continents, a double-digit drop is catastrophic. Shipments fell too, down 9% globally, but a staggering 20% drop in North America, which is supposed to be the company's profit center. What does that mean in real terms? It means fewer Jeeps on trails, fewer Chargers on roads, fewer Pacificas in suburban garages. Problem number 3. Production shutdowns and layoffs, the human toll. Factories in Canada and Mexico went quiet, not because of strikes or supply issues, but because building cars there and shipping them to the US suddenly became 25% more expensive overnight. The result? Production halts. Approximately 900 temporary layoffs in US parts plants, thousands more affected in Canada and Mexico. And remember, these aren't just numbers. These are fathers, mothers, skilled workers, and career technicians facing sudden uncertainty. Entire communities dependent on Stellantis paychecks are now holding their breath. Problem number 4. Pricing pressure is crushing dealer confidence. Imagine you're a Jeep dealer. You've got a lot full of Wranglers and Grand Cherokees that suddenly cost more to import. Do you raise prices and risk losing customers to Toyota or Ford? Or do you eat the cost and pray for better margins next quarter? That's the impossible choice Stellantis dealers now face. Dealer inventories are swelling. Pricing strategies are unclear. And brand loyalty, already fragile in a competitive market, is now under stress. Imported models are becoming liabilities in a landscape where tariffs have weaponized the price tag. Wall Street doesn't wait for answers. Since January 2025, Stellantis stock has dropped over 25%. That's billions in market value, vanished like smoke. Investors were already cautious about EV transitions, supply chain reliability, and geopolitical tension. The tariff bombshell was the tipping point. Analysts are calling this one of the most uncertain quarters in modern auto history. Even respected outlets like Reuters, CNBC, and Investopedia are using words like chaotic, fragile, and critical to describe Stellantis' outlook. Market share, mixed fortunes across the globe. Europe, a surprising rebound amid headwinds. In the first quarter of 2025, Stellantis pulled off a noteworthy feat in the EU 30 region, gaining 1.9 percentage points of market share to hit 17.3%. That's not just resilience, it's a signal of renewal. Credit goes to popular new models like the Fiat Grande Panda, Opel Vauxhall Frontera, and Citroën C3 Aircross, which have struck a chord in the affordable hybrid and ICE markets. But it's not all celebration. Despite growth, Stellantis must contend with rigorous EU emission standards, forcing a faster transition to electrification. Meanwhile, VW, Hyundai Kia, and even Chinese newcomers are flooding the EV and hybrid segments with compelling alternatives. In this battleground, even small missteps can cost millions. North America, from muscle to maintenance. It's a different story stateside. Stellantis saw a 20% drop in North American sales, the steepest decline among major automakers in Q1 2025. Even so, there's a silver lining. Retail share has stabilized, and consumer interest in models like the Jeep Compass, Grand Cherokee, and Ram 1500/2500 is showing promise, with double-digit growth in some trims. But a hammer blow has come from Washington: a 25% US tariff on imported vehicles. For Stellantis, which still imports a sizable chunk of its product line, this tariff creates a pricing disadvantage compared to rivals with more localized US production. Ford, GM, Toyota, and Tesla have pounced on this gap with aggressive pricing and advertising. Electrification and product innovation racing against the clock. Electrification isn't optional anymore, it's existential. Stellantis is expanding its lineup with hybrid, plug-in, and BEV powertrains, plus more affordable ICE trims to stay in the game across segments. In Europe, Stellantis is now a hybrid market leader, and its battery electric efforts are regaining ground. But rivals like Volkswagen, Tesla, Hyundai, and Kia are faster to market with new BEV models. These competitors offer superior range, design, and pricing, especially in the compact and mid-size segments where volume matters. To stay relevant, Stellantis must accelerate innovation, not just match competitors, but outmaneuver them with smarter range, smarter design, and smarter pricing. Dealer network, rebuilding trust, brick by brick. A deep fissure in dealer relations is hurting the brand where it counts, in frontline sales. As of early 2025, only 28% of Stellantis dealers say they trust the company, a dismal figure in a relationship-driven industry. Years of inconsistent communication, erratic incentives, and restructuring turbulence have taken their toll. Now Stellantis is trying to repair that bridge. The strategy: increase marketing budgets, offer more predictable incentive programs, and promise greater transparency in operations. But while Stellantis is playing catch-up, competitors are cementing loyalty with dealers by offering better tech tools, faster logistics, and consistent rebates. Rebuilding trust is urgent, not optional. Pricing, tariffs, and profitability. In the US, the 25% import tariff is more than a speed bump. It's a roadblock. Stellantis brands like Jeep and Chrysler have high exposure to imported components, which makes it harder to compete with Ford, or GM models built entirely in North America. The result? Stellantis is struggling to price competitively, especially in the entry-level and mid-tier SUV segments, which are rapidly heating up with new competition. Globally, import rules in India, China, and parts of Africa are equally challenging. Stellantis either must localize production or absorb the cost disadvantages. Neither option is easy. Marketing and brand messaging. Making noise in a noisy market. In a market flooded with bold launches and ever louder marketing campaigns, Stellantis knows it must shout louder or smarter. In 2025, they've upped their game with Super Bowl ads, digital influencer partnerships, and dealer co-op funding for local campaigns. But every rival is doing the same, or better. Tesla dominates online buzz. Toyota dominates reliability messaging. Hyundai and Kia dominate value. And GM dominates tech integration. Even in South America, where Stellantis remains a market leader, competitors are beginning to erode that advantage with heavy ad spending and pricing promotions. Standing out in 2025 means more than marketing. It means identity. And Stellantis must define what Jeep, Dodge, and Chrysler truly stand for in the electric age. Global market headwinds, localization, or bust. Beyond North America and Europe, Stellantis faces mounting pressure to localize or retreat. In China, electric-focused local brands have surged past Western giants with tech-savvy, affordable vehicles. In India, regulatory hurdles and production cost disparities make penetration difficult. And in Africa and the Middle East, distribution remains inconsistent. Localization is expensive, but without it, Stellantis risks being left behind in some of the fastest-growing global markets. Competitors are already investing in regional production, dealer expansion, and price-sensitive product lines. The window for Stellantis to respond is closing.